I gotta be honest, I really don't understand the raw hatred and anger towards using a lot of pedals. Hey everyone, I'm Jack Fossett and welcome to Real Guitar Talk. This is the series where I'm tackling a lot of subjects that pertain to the guitar community in ways that I haven't heard discussed before. Maybe they have been, I just haven't seen them. But today I want to talk about some of this aggression and hatred and disdain and disgust for effects pedals. Now, I am someone who likes pedals. I don't like a massive amount of pedals. I don't use a Star Destroyer Control Center pedal board, but I like pedals. I like what they do to the tone, and in fact, I think they're a significant part of the history of guitar and what set guitar, electric guitar specifically, apart from other instruments back in the earlier innovative stages. What I've seen over the years is there's been kind of a rift and a divide between players who like to use a lot of effects and then ones who like to go straight into the amp. Now, first of all, I want to say, to just clear it up right from the start, if you get a good tone and you're comfortable playing the way that you play, that's absolutely great. You do it the way that you get the best tone, the way that it suits your playing, the way that it suits your band, or whatever. I'm not necessarily saying one is better than the other here. Really, it is. You get the tone how you get the tone. What I am responding to, let's say, is this sort of this snarky attitude from the players who want to go straight into the amp all the time to the players who use a lot of effects. And I think this is kind of a multifaceted thing. So one of the things that I want to start with is by kind of acknowledging that many of us have seen players who hide behind a lot of effects because, let's be perfectly honest, maybe they're not that good. Okay, fine. As long as people are making music in good faith, I don't particularly care what their skill level is. I want to see people playing with passion that they care about the music more than they care about their ego. So already that's kind of leading me towards the pedal crowd. But we'll get there. We'll get there. But there are players who, I've seen players in bands where you kind of go, okay, they're not really doing much of anything. They're just using a lot of effects to kind of sound cool, maybe excessive effects that they don't need, but they're just hiding behind this wall of crazy sound because maybe they haven't put the work in. That's fair. We've probably all seen that. At the highest level, one player who I think gets a lot of unnecessary hatred for this is the Edge. Now, the Edge, I think, and I'm going to say outright, is a great guitar player. Now, is he necessarily a blues rock shredder? No. This is, again, where you're starting to see that sort of rift and divide. You don't have to be an amazing blues rock shredder or a metal shredder or a, highly technical jazz player in order to be a good guitar player. And we may want to separate the idea of being a good musician versus being a good guitar player. You can put a lot of work into getting talented on the guitar and being able to play different scales and move between different modes and all this and whatnot. But that doesn't mean you'll be able to make good music. On the other side of that equation, you may be someone who doesn't have a ton of technical skill on the guitar, but you have an ear for melody and harmony and all the things that make a great song. Now, I actually don't know what the Edge's level of like just playing proficiency is in general for different types of playing, but I know that what he does takes an incredible amount of creativity and precision in his playing. It does take a lot of precision, even if it doesn't take, crazy movements here and there. You gotta hit those parts right in order to make those kind of cascading delays work and everything. I see a lot of people kind of like trashing him and saying he's a terrible guitar player who just does this and that. And it's like, well, first of all, he's way more successful than pretty much any of us are ever going to be. But second of all, he created a unique sound that led to the success of one of the most famous rock bands in history. And I think what he does is awesome. So, you can hide behind effects, but you can also use them with great creativity. And that leads me to another point, which is that many of the most famous and innovative and influential guitar players in history, they have used effects for great creative music. Now, a lot of them had great chops too and could play, awesome licks and things, but they had an ear for let's not just be tied down to the guitar tone. Let's see what it can do. And I mean, we're talking about Jimi Hendrix, we're talking about David Gilmour, we're talking about tons of guitar players. And let us know who your favorite innovative effect using guitar players are in the comments. Brian May, he's another one of my favorites. Absolutely used the effects to create sounds that suited the music beyond just their playing. All right, now it seems very much like I'm leaning and pushing people into using a lot of effects. And again, I still want to go back to the fact that like if you get a great tone and it suits you and it suits your playing and it suits your band, then that is perfect. You just stick with it and do what you do best. But don't get so up in, I'm so much better than everyone else. You just get that attitude, that attitude about somehow it's the same attitude that you used to get from players who used heavy strings versus players who use light strings. Now I think a lot of that has kind of, as the stories of Billy Gibbons and other players have come out more with YouTube and things, I think that one's mostly been put to rest. But it's that same kind of like, well, I only go straight into the amp and I just use my volume and tone. And say, oh, pshaw. And it's like, okay, great, yeah, maybe you're more vulnerable. Maybe it exposes your playing a little bit more if you only do that. You don't have as much to hide behind. But you also miss out on a lot of creative musical texture that you can be using to make your sound better. Now, I also want to get down to what we're actually talking about here, which is what do pedals do? And this is to refute some of the people who will bring up famous guitar players who don't use any effects. We'll say, well, this guy just goes straight into the amp. That's all he needs. That's all any of us should need. But let's think about what pedals do fundamentally. What do? They modify your tone, right? Tell me a time when you're listening to any of these famous guitar players when their tone isn't actually modified to some degree. Because even if they're going straight into the amp, you're still hearing it through professional sound equipment, including compressors and EQs. Even when you're seeing them live, first of all, if you're hearing them on a recording, yeah, maybe they plug straight into the amp to get their tone, but you're not just hearing a guitar straight into an amp. You are hearing all the other studio production tricks that went into producing that tone for the record. Even if you're seeing them live, you're hearing them through a massively professional sound system that, again, is going to probably include EQs, compressors, and even other things. The only time you would possibly actually hear them straight into the amp is if you happen to be in the room with them. And how many of us have actually been in the room with Keith Richards when he's playing the guitar? So going back to the point, I would say, don't be so snarky and don't be so condescending to players who like to use a lot of pedals. If you are a player who uses a lot of pedals and you're mostly using it to hide the fact that you're uncomfortable, that you feel like you should be better and you're nervous, I would just say keep working at it, keep playing, keep getting better, and keep getting to the point where you don't feel like that anymore. Because probably a lot of us, I know I have been on stage and felt like, I'm not ready for this. Okay? That's a terrible feeling. The way you get over that feeling is by working harder. It's by practicing more. It's by learning more. So let's abandon the anger, the hatred for pedals. Let's try and give some people a gentle nudge in the right direction if they need a little bit more practice. And let's hope for more musical creativity instead of more musical ego. But that's what I think. Let us know what you think in the comments. I'm Jack Fossett. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.